What's going on, guys? So in this video we're going to implement a friends list in our application, and it's going to allow users to add friends and also see a list of all their friends on the home page. We're going to do this using SocketIO, React, and Redis. So the first thing we want to do is go over to our front end in React, and I'm going to go over to the component for this modal for when a user submits a friend's username. And here we're going to do an event in SocketIO to send over this username to our SocketIO server. So the first thing we want to do is import this SocketIO client instance that we created into this file. So I'm just going to do that. Import socket from that file. And then here in our onSubmit, we would just do socket.emit. And so this .emit is a function that we call to send over an event to our server, to trigger an event. And the first argument is the event name. So the event name is going to be called add_friend. And then any arguments other after that would be like whatever data you want to send over. So obviously we need to send over the values.friend name, so the username that we're trying to add. And another cool thing about SocketIO is that you can pass over a function which is like a callback, and the server can call the callback and then it will be called on the client. So here we're going to have a callback, and this is going to be useful because we want to know if there was any errors, and if there was, we want to display an error message for the user instead of just having nothing happen, which can be confusing potentially. So an argument for this callback would be an object that we destructure, and it's going to have an error message and a done. And done is going to be either true or false, and that's what we're going to do. So here if done, if we're done, so if there was no errors, done will be true, then we just do onClose. Close the modal, and then return from this onSubmit function. Okay, and so if we're not done, then that means there's an error message. Then we're gonna have a state up here to hold our error messages. So const error message set. I gotta change this though. So error and set error is equal to use state, and it initializes to an empty string. So if there's an error message, we would do set error to the error message like that, like so. And then the error message, we can render that over here in the modal's body. So we could just render a heading like that. And then I have to import that because it's not importing. And in the side of the header will live our error message. I'm gonna render that as a p tag, and the color will be equal to red.500. Okay, so here we'll just do test, and that's the error message. So first we also want to do text align equals center, just like that. And then we can also configure font size to be small or medium or large. Okay, that's fine, just like that. Okay, so yeah, if we get an error back from the server, we don't close the modal and we just display the error message. All right, perfect. So we're good on this side of the front end. So we're emitting an event with the value of the friend, the username, and the callback. So let's go over here to our SocketIO server backend. And so we're gonna wanna register an event here. So socket.on. So for this socket connection, on this event that's called add_friend, we're gonna want to run whatever's in here. And so we're gonna create a function down here. So module.exports.add friend takes in a socket, and that's exactly what we're gonna use to handle this event. So just like that. And I'm just gonna clean this up a bit. I'm gonna move this console log over here. Okay. All right, so now whenever we're submitting this, it's gonna run this function. And so this gets passed in not a socket, but the friend name. That's what it gets passed in. And it also gets passed in the callback, if you don't remember. So that will be callback. And we're supposed to pass it in an object with error message and done. So here for now, let's just console log friend name, and we're gonna call the callback with done set to true. Okay, and we're gonna check, and I'm just gonna do a little test right here. So refresh. Let me restart the server. I forgot to save the file, so I'm gonna go here, add a friend. So hey test, and you see it gets printed out. And since our front end gets called to callback with done to true, it just closes the modal. Now let's try to set this to false, and forgot if I called it error or error message. Just let me check real quick. Error message. Okay. So here if we pass in error message set to not valid name, and we just go like that. See, prints this out just like that, and that's the intended behavior. So yeah, we can just continue on from here. So we got the friend username of who they're trying to add. First thing we want to do is get the user's ID. So const friend user ID is equal to Redis client, and this is going to be await, and this up here, this function has to be asynchronous. So Redis client dot hget, since we're going to get a field from a hash map, and we're going to use backticks here, and the key of the hash map, so the name of the variable, whatever, however you want to think about it, the key of the hash map is going to be called, it is called user ID colon and then friend name, and then the second argument is the name of the field we're trying to get, and here we're trying to get their user ID. So this is just gonna print out the user ID of the friend that we're trying to add. So let me just try to add myself, and we need to remember to clear this out. See, and it's getting my user ID and printing it out here. And let me just clear this out over here. Let me go to the front end real quick, and whenever we close this, yeah, this is a little complicated. So okay, so here I'm just gonna make a function called close modal is equal to use callback, and then this is just gonna be a function that calls on close, and it also clears out the error message. So set error to nothing, and this should never change, but it's screaming at me. It wants the dependency on close, so I'll just pass that in. And then we have to import use callback, and this is so that this function doesn't change on each render, and instead of passing on close here, we just pass close modal. In here we just call close modal. So every time we close the modal, it'll clear out that error message. So let's go test it real quick. So I'm gonna go back here to this, and I'm gonna be doing callback with done false error message not valid, or no valid, whatever. So here, there, and then when we clear it out, it clears it out. So here, and let's change our server to say done is true, so it was valid. See, it clears out the error message now. Okay, so we fixed that. And so over here, we're going to continue what we were doing. And now that we're getting the username every time we try to add a friend, which is perfect right there. First of all, we want to check. So it might be possible that we add a friend that doesn't exist. So this variable right here will be null. So that's the first thing we want to check. So if not friend user ID, then right here we just want to do callback done false error message user doesn't exist, just like that. And then we would return from this function. Let's stick that here. Okay, hold up. Okay, just like that, my bad. So yeah, we just, if the user doesn't exist, we call a callback with the error message, and we just return from this add friend function. That's the first thing. And the second thing we want to check, if we're trying to add ourselves as a friend, which is not what we're trying to do. So if friend user ID is equal to our own ID, right? And we would need access to our own socket. So what we can do to get access to our user's own socket connection is we can just change this to be a function that takes in the friend name and the callback. And then we just call add friend and we pass in socket, friend name, and callback, just like that. And then over here, we take in the socket. And so we can do if the friend's user ID is the same as our own socket.user.user ID, that means we're trying to add ourselves as a friend. And that's not, we don't want people to be doing that. So here, let's test this out. So cannot add self. And let's try to add ourselves as a friend. See, cannot add self right there. But we can actually do this a better way. So instead of getting their ID, we can save ourselves from even calling on the Redis database. So we can move this up here, and we can just do if friend name is equal to our username. So the usernames are the same. We just want to do this over here. So cannot add self, and that will be the error message. So let's try this now. There you go. All right, so after we've checked that we're not trying to add ourselves and the user actually exists, we want to actually check if the user is already in our friends list. So we can do that up here. We're going to want to do another query. So, and we'll call this current friend list, and it's just going to be equal to L range. So our friends list is going to be a stack, if you're familiar with data structures, or if you want to think of it in an easier way, kind of like an array in JavaScript. So it's going to be kind of something like this, and then whenever we add to it, we're adding to the beginning. So it would be Tom, and when we want to add someone called Steve, we add them to the beginning. And think of it kind of like when you do an array dot unshift, or when it's a stack and you just do stack dot push, right? And you're just adding to the top. That's kind of what we're doing here. So we're gonna want to get the L range, and in Redis, that stack I just told you about, it's called an L range. So when you do L range, it's getting a range, right? And then the first argument is the name of the actual, the key of the actual array, and this will just be called friends, and the username of the user that's trying to add the friend. So we're trying to check if the user who sent over this request already has this friend name in their friends list, because you don't want to add the same friend twice. And so the second argument of this query is basically like the range of the values that you're trying to get from this stack. So here we can do from 0 to -1, and that just means get the whole thing. I want you to get from the beginning all the way to the end of this array or stack. And so here we can do, first of all, if they have a current friend list. So if we received a friend list back, so the friend list is not empty, then we want to check if it contains the user that they're trying to add. We're going to store users in their friend list. We're going to store them by username. So if it contains the friend and current friend list dot index of friend name is not equal to -1, so that means the friend's name, so the username of the friend they're trying to add, is actually in the array or the friend list already. Here we would just do this, return an error message that says friend already added, like that. And so up here, when they're trying to add their self, I forgot to return from that. Okay, so all of these checks have been done, and we're actually, if they got through all of this, that means it's a valid query, and we can just go ahead and add this friend name to our user's friend list. So here we can just do await Redis client dot L push. So we want to push to the top of the stack, and the key here would be friends socket dot user dot username, the same as here. So we're adding to our user's friend list, and the value that we're going to add is friend name. And then here we can do callback with an object done is true, like so. Okay, so I'm actually going to be opening an incognito browser here. I'm going to go over and I'm going to just create another account called Hello World with the password of Hello World. Okay, and I'm going to go over here to my Lester user, which is me, and I'm going to try to add Hello World as a friend. So in our front end, after when we add a user as a friend, before we close the modal, we actually want to add them to our friends list. So if you checked in the last videos, we have a context set up over here. So we can call the use context hook over here. So you can do const, and I forgot what it was called, set friend list. Okay, const set friend list is equal to use context and friend context. So here we would just do set friend list, and it's a function, and it gets our previous friend list, and we can return an array that has our previous friend list, but also the friend that we just added at the top of the list, just like that. And so here I'm gonna add Hello World as a friend, and let's see, let's check over here in Redis, keys star, and here we made a mistake. I put friend with no S at the end. So here it should say friends with an S. Let me just refresh and try again. So Hello World, and something's just not right here. In our sidebar, no, each child should have a key prop. Okay, let me go here. So we're not using that function, and here we're mapping through our friends and giving each one an H stack, and we're not giving it a key. So the key here should be friend, and then just the name of the friend. Okay, so let's do that again. So we're gonna add hello world as a friend. It should say friend already added. So that's one thing, but when we refresh our application, we lose our friends list, and we want to fix that. So we want to make it that each time we load our application, we actually get our friends list from the server. So to do that, we would want to go over to our backend, and when we initialize our user, we want to get their friends. So let me just make this an asynchronous function. And let's actually get their friend list. So const friend list is equal to await Redis client dot L range friends, and then we plug in socket dot user dot username, and then we want to get from 0 to -1, and then we would just want to do socket dot emit friends, and we send over the friend list. And let's also console log the friend list like that. So here the friend list of our user Lester is just an array with one entry, and so that's working perfect. And we're sending over that array to our front end. When we do socket.emit, it basically sends an event to our front end socket client that's called friends with the data of this array. So we're going to go over here to our front end and use socket setup like that. And here we can pass in set friend list to our hook, and we receive that here like that. And over here we do socket dot on friends, we get the friend list, and we just do set friend list and pass in our friend list like that. And so when we add a friend, oh, there we go, and we passed it in just like that. Okay, so I had just forgotten to save the file. So when we refresh over here, we're getting our friends list, and there's some type of error going on. So I'm just gonna go here and console log the friend list that we're getting from the server when I refresh. And yeah, I'm not sure why it's not working. Must be something when we're rendering. So I'm gonna go over here to the chat. No, I'm gonna go over here to the sidebar. Oh, and because here we're doing friend.username. So here it would just be friend. And there we go. So whenever we add a friend, they go here, and let's go into Redis. And let's just delete we can just delete all the friends list. I think you have to be a little more specific, right? So we just deleted my friends list. So when I refresh, oh, it was with an S. Okay, so now when we refresh, there's no friends. And when we try to add ourselves, that's not right. And when we try to add hello world, here we have them as a friend. And see, this friend list is persistent, so it's not going anywhere when we refresh because it's being stored in our Redis database. So yeah, that's all you really need to do a friend list. You just and when you receive it from the server, you just map through the friend list and render it whatever you want. In this case, we're doing this. And the next video, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make it so that when the user's online, so if hello world over here has a tab open, this circle is gonna be green. to indicate that they're online. And if they're offline, it's going to be red. And it's not hard at all. So yeah, that's what we're going to do in the next video. See you then.